Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Uh, this is our committee meeting before our regular council meeting. Tonight we have two speakers. The first is Dr. Jeff Standridge. That's tough for me to say, Jeff. I knew when you were just a kid. Jeff's the director of the conductor here in Conway, and he and I have been visiting some about possibly a partnership with the city and the conductor. And so I wanted Jeff to come and present to the council and get y'all's thoughts. Dr. Standridge, it's all you.
Great. Thanks so much. And I think I'll need some sharing privileges so I can share some slides with you guys. There we go. How's that right there? Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, let me just start by asking, and it'll be kind of a rhetorical question because we won't have the opportunity to do Q&A, but how many of you really think that you could describe in 3 sentences or more what the conductor actually is? Again, we want to ask for responses, kind of a rhetorical question, but the conductor has just passed our 4th year of existence. We were founded in November of 2016. And I want to talk about the organization kind of in a few chunks of who we are, what we do, why we do it, and what have you. So what we do, the conductor's mission is to inspire and empower entrepreneurs, innovators, and makers. Entrepreneurs, clearly self-explanatory, small business owners, startup founders. They don't have to be in the tech space. They don't have to be in the tech-enabled space or the data analytics space. Any small business owner by our definition is an entrepreneur. Innovators, folks in nonprofits, folks in organizations that are important to Conway, folks in larger employers who are looking to innovate and to change the nature of their work, to change the game for their organizations, and then makers. We'll talk a little bit about the UCA makerspace in a couple of moments. And the maker movement is what I would call a bit of a tinkering movement for those that have creative skills, tinkering skills, and what have you, and to give them a place to do that, and also to introduce them to the possibility of taking their tinkering into an actual entrepreneurial pursuit. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. So why do we do this? Why did I leave a nearly 20-year career with Axiom to start the conductor? And why have I been here for a little over 4 years? And why do I intend to stay here until they run me off or put me in the ground one? And that's because of the importance of what we do. The Kauffman Foundation estimates that 85% of all net new jobs come from startup companies and small businesses. So think about that for a moment. Walmart Corporation, great company. We all love to go to Walmart. We all love having Walmart in our community. But they announced just a couple of years ago 1,000 people that they were going to reduce from their corporate headquarters. They have to be net up one. I'm sorry, they have to rehire 1,000 people to be net up one. So the fact of the matter is large organizations are shrinking, and it is the small businesses and the entrepreneurial pursuits that are creating all the net new jobs, or the vast majority of the net new jobs. Not only that, small businesses, inclusive of startup companies, represent approximately 99% of all employers and 50% of all employed. So I would suspect that at least 50% of you sitting around the table, if you do hold a W-2 position, you're employed most likely by what would be the definition of a small business. At least a large portion of you would. They're also responsible for 43% of all high-tech jobs. So we like to hear about Silicon Valley, or we tend to only hear about Silicon Valley and Boston and Austin and what have you. But the fact of the matter is nearly half of all high-tech jobs come from startup companies and small businesses. And they're responsible for 13 times more patents per employee than larger companies. So the work that the conductor does is extremely important. A little bit how it started. 2013, I had the privilege of serving as chair of the Conway Chamber of Commerce, and we started asking the question, what do we have to do to get more startup activity going on in Conway? So we put a small steering team together that spent about 9 months together, and all we did for that 9 months was interviewed entrepreneurs, failed entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, people who were in this thing called the entrepreneurial ecosystem at the time. And we found that entrepreneurs really need 3 things to be successful. They need access to expertise in the form of mentoring, coaching, and consulting. They need access to a culture or an ecosystem where they can gather with other entrepreneurs and other successful business people. They can network, they can receive training, go to events, share resources, share ideas, and they also need access to capital. So you may remember, this was in 2013. You may remember in 2014, approximately a year later, we had our very first pitch competition, and we had a celebrity judge come to that pitch competition. We gave away $15,000 to one entrepreneur, and that celebrity judge was a guy by the name of Stanley Burrell. How many of you know who Stanley Burrell is? Stanley Burrell, aka MC Hammer. He was the headliner at our Toadsuck event that year, and he is a prolific entrepreneur and investor in the Oakland, California area. He came and actually judged that competition. The next thing that we did is we actually started a venture fund. We started Cadron Creek Capital in the spring of 2015. We announced it in 2014. We launched the fund in 2015. We recruited 62 investors, and we invested in 16 companies, became the largest member-managed venture fund in the state of Arkansas at the time. We've since launched a couple of additional funds since that time. But then in November of 2016, we launched the Conductor to focus on more of the other concentric circles here, or Venn diagram circles here, of access to expertise and building the ecosystem. So the Conductor is defined as a public-private partnership between the University of Central Arkansas and Startup Junkie Consulting. Startup Junkie has been doing this work in Northwest Arkansas for over 13 years. At the time, had been doing it for around 7 or 8 years. And Tom Conway, in his wisdom at that time, saw an opportunity to partner with Startup Junkie to look at what could we do in Conway to encompass the fact that we have critical resources here that could be leveraged into a startup ecosystem. And so we are this public-private partnership. UCA was our first flagship funding partner, and we focus on innovation, entrepreneurship, talent development, and economic empowerment. I want to talk just briefly about this concept of economic empowerment. I have the privilege of serving on the Conway Development Corporation board, and I understand the concept of economic development, where we are engaged in recruiting other organizations to either locate here, relocate here, or to put jobs here. It is a critical component to our overall economic development spectrum. But economic empowerment is where we take someone who has an idea and we help them create a dollar where a dollar didn't exist before. And if you think about the Facebooks of the world, a few years ago, Facebook didn't exist, and it has created enormous wealth. You think about the mid-'60s when Axiom Corporation didn't exist, but the founders had an idea that they were able to create economic empowerment from over the next few years. So we're spending a lot of time focused on this concept of economic empowerment and on the concept of talent development, which we'll talk more about. I want every student, I want every teacher, I want every administrator, and I want every parent to know that entrepreneurship is a viable career path. It's a viable career path while they're in high school. It's a viable career path while they're in college. It's a way to help finance their higher education. And it is a viable career path if they choose to forego a higher education. I'm not advocating that, but I want them to know, for the folks who do not intend to go to college, that entrepreneurship is a viable career path. So how do we do it? Well, if startups account for 85% of all net new job creation, yet startups and small businesses fail at an extremely high rate, and add to that the conundrum that they don't really have money for the consulting, the types of experts that we bring to the table generally command upward of $350 to $500 an hour for their technical expertise in consulting. Startup companies and small businesses don't have that kind of money. So our model is to secure third-party sources of funding via contracts with government institutions, foundations, and large corporations, so that we can provide this mentoring, coaching, training, technical assistance, and access to capital for these entrepreneurs free with no strings attached. That is below a certain revenue threshold. Usually we say about the $10 million level. If they're an organization smaller than about $10 million in annualized revenue, every service that they get from us is provided to them without fear of ever receiving an invoice. So how do we do that? We do that through partnerships. I mentioned the partnership between the University of Central Arkansas and Startup Junkie that resulted in the Conductor. Since that time, we've received and we have annual contracts with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission to run our 10X Growth Accelerator, where we bring companies from all over the state to Conway, Arkansas, to go through a 14-week accelerator program. And through the U.S. Small Business Administration, we're one of 7. Actually, we are 2 of 7, 1 of 14 or 2 of 7. Had that backwards. 2 of 14 or 1 of 7 contractors for the Small Business Administration in what's called their regional innovation cluster. Startup Junkie in Fayetteville has the Ozark Regional Innovation Cluster. We in Conway at the Conductor have the Conductor Regional Innovation Cluster, which is a 5-year relationship to do contract work for the Small Business Administration. We also have formed partnerships with a number of other companies who actually contribute to the Conductor Fund at the UCA Foundation. And they do that in order to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem building here in Conway. And we'll talk a little more about Conway Corporation's role here in a couple of moments. Recently, we have just been selected by the Archangel Alliance, which is an association of angel investors, individuals who have the means to invest in startup companies. And we have been selected to manage that organization. And so our Director of Operations, Grace Rains, serves also as the Executive Director of the Archangel Alliance. And that is a relatively new partnership that has come about. Additional partnerships between us and our partners in Northwest Arkansas, Startup Junkie. We have partnerships with Matova, with a contractual relationship with the City of Fayetteville, with the Walton Family Foundation, the Economic Development Administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which you'll see in a moment, but you don't see on this slide, and then Cadron Capital Partners, the venture fund that succeeded Cadron Creek Capital that we're operating today. So, sustainable venture ecosystems, the ideal startup ecosystem. And as I run through these, I want you to think about Conway and why we chose to put the Conductor here in Conway. 4 components: an education-driven innovation and talent engine. Check. A vibrant entrepreneurial culture. Well, maybe not where we want it to be, but with the advent of things like Axiom and Matova and a number of other companies around, we have developed that culture over time and have work to do. Substantial engagement of local industry. So we have large companies that are interested in building the entrepreneurial ecosystem for 2 reasons. Number 1, it helps them with their research and development. Number 2, it continues to build the talent pool here that they can draw on as they grow their companies. And finally, access to capital and expertise at all stages of venture growth. Here are some of the programs that we run from the Conductor that you may or may not be aware of. We've talked about the Makerspace, our relationship with Archangel Alliance. We are the statewide coordinator for Global Entrepreneurship Week. We had more coordinators around the state that we recruited and more activities during Global Entrepreneurship Week than any other chapter around the world. We run a health sciences entrepreneurship boot camp, a 6-day resident camp at UCA in partnership with UAMS and Conway Regional Health System. Our 10X Growth Accelerator has been lauded by the governor. He visits it almost every cohort. We take Arkansas-based companies, both in Conway and around the state. It's funded by the AEDC. And they have to have a minimum of $100,000 of annualized revenue. And we focus over a 14-week period. If they're 100,000, getting them to $1 million. If they're $1 million, getting them to 10 million. If they're at the $10 million threshold, which is in fact the threshold to be in the program, we're focused on trying to help them get to 100 million. Very successful program. The Makerspace over at UCA in the Donaghy building is a 1,500 square foot space that's open to students, faculty, staff, and the community for no cost for the use of the equipment and the services, thanks to UCA and their sponsorship. It's open generally 8:30 to 5 p.m. And we generally see somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 appointments in the Makerspace every single year. One of the things that the Makerspace really stepped in and did this year is they jumped in to innovate during the crisis of the COVID pandemic and began running prototypes with a maker task force from around the state, actually around the region, to produce personal protective equipment for healthcare providers and other frontline workers. And you see some examples there of things that were actually created in the Makerspace with our 3D printers and other equipment and the engineering assistance, if you will, and drafting assistance of some of the experts that we have there. So where do we do it? So we've talked about what we do, how we do, why we do it, how we do it, now where we do it. We are based in Conway, Arkansas. We serve Faulkner County first and foremost through our relationship with the Small Business Administration and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They've enabled us to move into 10 other counties surrounding the Faulkner County. And so you see those listed here. You should have received a soft copy of our annual report last night. And this annual report is something that we produce annually to give to all of our stakeholders and funding sources to to demonstrate our accountability to the metrics that they expect. Last year in 2020, we touched 5,218 participants through all of our programming, of which almost actually a little over 350 were K-12 students. So a big focus on talent development, as I mentioned. Thousands, and I mean literally thousands of entrepreneurs and small business owners received coaching and technical assistance from us just since March. The amount of work that we did working with the U.S. Small Business Administration, working with our delegation to Congress, and working with entrepreneurs to help with the emergency injury disaster loans, the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and providing technical assistance for those. 71% of the people who interacted with Conductor in 2020 reported adding new revenue, new clients, new products, and or new services. 1,280 appointments were in the makerspace. You saw in 2019, we actually had 1,800. So probably the only area where we're down a little bit, and because that requires physical proximity, we pivoted all of our other programs to more of a virtual mode. And our overall net promoter score was 85.1. Generally, anything approaching 80% is considered world-class. And basically, that's an assessment of everyone who comes in contact with us and asking them, would you recommend the services you provide that you received from the Conductor? Would you recommend those to someone else? So what do we have coming on the horizon? Well, I mentioned that $10 million was somewhat of the threshold for which we provide free services. I will tell you that in an increasing manner over the last couple of years, we have had larger organizations, billion-dollar companies, multiple $100 million companies, and multiple billion-dollar divisions of large global corporations coming to us and saying, you know, this think like a startup work that you're doing with entrepreneurs, we really need some of that ourselves, and we can help compensate you for that. So in January, we started a new brand of the organization called Innovation Junkie. And Innovation Junkie is more of a billable consulting firm. When folks reach out to Innovation Junkie, they can expect that they're going to receive an invoice for the consulting services. Yet they're can also rest assured that the money they pay for those services are going to also help continue building the economic environment and the entrepreneurial ecosystem around the state of Arkansas, inclusive of Conway. Our first client was Arkansas Children's Hospital. We signed a 3-year relationship with Arkansas Children's Hospital in July to help them create an internationally recognized, nationally competitive pediatric innovation program. Innovation Junkie is the prime contractor and is subcontracting work from the Conductor, from Startup Junkie, from the Venture Center in Little Rock, the University of Arkansas's Walton College of Business, as well as Health Tech Arkansas, a healthcare accelerator located in Little Rock. And we're extremely excited about that program. You also received a copy of our entrepreneurial policy map that was delivered to you last night. Be glad to get hard copies of either of these if you want them. This entrepreneurship policy map was something that we felt compelled to do because of the amount of work that we do with both our state and federal delegations and with communities and local municipalities around our service areas. And so it contains 60 total recommendations, 11 in each of the 4 pillar areas of talent, culture, community engagement, and access to capital. And then there are 8 to members of Congress and to the president. And so there's actually on the next to the last page, there's an actual section for municipal and state leaders that we would encourage you guys to take a look at. And we've put those in the hands, as I said, you received it last night. We've sent those to mayors around the state. We've sent it to state legislators and federal legislators, as well as folks in the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and et cetera. Quite frankly, there are some antiquated statutes and antiquated policies that are getting in the way of entrepreneurs. And we believe that it's our responsibility to help you understand what those are and to help other policymakers understand what those are. That actually led to the creation of a coalition to advance Arkansas entrepreneurship, which Tiffany Henry, who is our Director of Entrepreneurial Communities, is leading. She has anywhere from 30 to 50 people from around the state gathering with her on a monthly basis to explore not only these issues, but other issues that affect both small businesses and that affect investors choosing to or not to invest in small businesses. And so you can expect to hear more out of the coalition to advance Arkansas entrepreneurship as we go forward. I mentioned our relationship with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Tiffany as well, Tiffany Henry, that is, secured a relationship, a contractual relationship with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and formed a partnership with Main Street, Arkansas, to run what we're calling our Level Up program. This will be a 6-week training and technical assistant program for downtown merchants, for all of the downtown merchants that are part of Main Street, Arkansas. Clearly, Downtown Conway partnership is going to be part of that as well, for face-to-face or Zoom weekly discussion meetings, online recorded training for those that are in the digital divide, and a peer-to-peer learning network to help provide mentoring, coaching, and consulting for those folks to effectively help them recover from the impact of the pandemic and the resulting economic crisis. You all know this place and you know it well, and I'm excited to say that Conway Corporation has stepped up in a very meaningful way, and as you all know, acquired City Hall, and it has gone through the internal demolition phase. They've committed about almost $3.5 million to the renovation to create the Arnold Innovation Center, and that will become the home of the conductor. Today, I actually rent the spaces that we operate out of, and we're here in the First American building directly across from the Chamber Plaza. But we're very, very excited about this space. It'll have effectively 4 major functions. It'll have co-working space down on the first floor, and that will be for entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs who need the coaching and technical assistance from the conductor, but can't afford their own office space. Then they will be able to secure a free membership and work from that space when they need to and receive their coaching and consulting. We'll have event space where we can bring folks together, obviously in a safe environment today, but after COVID moves beyond us, we'll be able to have events for training and workshops and what have you. We'll have upstairs what we call scale-up space. So for those companies that have outgrown the sharing of workspace and the co-working space, they have 3 to 5 to 15 employees. We'll actually have space that they can use upstairs for a subsidized rent, but they also need the coaching and consulting of the conductor. And then we'll have some social space to continue building out that entrepreneurial culture that we're trying to build out around Conway. I think it says a lot for a community that at the crossroads of their downtown, they place an innovation center and make it known not only to their existing residents, but to also any potential prospects who might want to move here or move their companies here, that entrepreneurship and innovation is important to us. We've created for our community and for other communities what we call the Venture Ecosystem Building Canvas. And you'll see at the top the 4 components, the pillars of talent, culture, capital, and community engagement. We're releasing that on January the 28th in a book that we'll actually have the draft copy of that I'm reviewing now, but that book will go live on January the 28th, and we'll make sure that each of you get a copy of it as well. It basically chronicles what we've done in Conway, what's been done in Northwest Arkansas, and what other communities can do in the flyover states to create sustainable venture ecosystems in unexpected places. We've recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Conway Area Chamber of Commerce and the CDC to be a direct extension of both of their teams, specifically for entrepreneurial development and small business to support. We will be effectively their small business and entrepreneurial development arm. We'll be working with cohorts of the Central Arkansas or Conway Area Leadership Institute to increase their exposure to entrepreneurial development. We're going to be providing technical assistance, workshops, training, and other services to Conway area entrepreneurs and small businesses as part of that partnership. We'll be conducting an annual needs analysis of the Conway area to determine what the priority needs are for each subsequent year, and we'll build our programming around that. And then we'll be hosting economic development prospects that might be positively influenced by being introduced to Conway's robust entrepreneurial environment. Our ask for the city of Conway is, and I put a memorandum in front of Bart for him to take a look at that kind of outlines what we think we can do to support the city and what we would ask in return. Really what we're looking for is to serve as the formal extension of the city of Conway's economic development efforts, specifically focused on serving entrepreneurs and small business owners. We want to collaborate on grant funding opportunities to extend not only the entrepreneurial support, but also the workforce development activities of the city, because of the talent is talent, and talent's important. Workforce development is important for large employers, and it is important for small entrepreneurial businesses as well. We want to work together to ensure that the support and technical assistance needs are met for underserved entrepreneurs, regardless of whether they're underserved because they're minority, they're women-owned, they're veterans or disabled veterans or disabled for other reasons. We want to have a robust entrepreneurial environment that crosses all boundaries and breaks down walls and boundaries. And we're also open to provide to the city of Conway, where it may be needed, the same level of innovation consulting support to any city departments that we provide to large companies where it's needed and where it may be requested. We're not asking for a contract. We're not asking for a change of money. We're looking to basically educate you all about what the conductor does. And then over time, we want to build a strong partnership so that we can put a unified front together that says entrepreneurial support and workforce development is important to Conway. And that's what we're looking to do. We're excited about the involvement of the governor, who generally makes it to every cohort of our 10X Growth Accelerator. We're very excited about the involvement of our 2nd Congressional District Congressman French Hill, who has come and actually taken our certified maker training at our makerspace and works with us extensively on influencing legislation and what have you. And with that, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Mayor Castleberry, I appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you all, and I'm open to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jeff. Council, do you have any questions for Jeff? That sounds to me like you did a pretty good job covering everything, Jeff.
Well,
I appreciate. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know I ran through it quickly. I wanted to be a good steward of your time. That's my contact information. That is my direct mobile number. That is my email address. And if you have friends, family members, or anyone else who has businesses that need some technical assistance, they can go to arconductor.org, click on Let's Talk, and they can literally schedule a coaching session directly with me, with Grace, or with Tiffany from our website. Our calendars are open. Encourage them to do that. If you guys have any questions or follow-up information or any feedback for us, we would love to hear from you. And with that, I will leave it to you.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. And we are proud to have the conductor in Conway and the work you guys do. I will be talking to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, and on behalf of our team, we appreciate the work you all do, both the mayor's office and the council.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next up, council, we have Chief Tapley, who's going to bring you up to date on some of the things that's going on in the Conway Police Department. Chief Tapley.
Good evening. How is everybody doing tonight? When Mayor Castleberry asked me to come speak with you guys a little bit tonight, I realized that a lot of the things that I'm going to go over and talk to you about are things that were covered in our community forum that we had back in December. I know several of you were there and listened to what I said that night. Unfortunately, a lot of what you're going to hear tonight is the same type of things of what we've been doing since I got here in July. The only difference is I would ask that if, as I'm going through this, if you have questions, please interrupt me and let me further explain or answer the question for you. But it's been a busy 6 months, and it's only been 6 months since I've been here. But in July, I got here. One of the very first things we did as a department is we instituted a duty to intervene policy. That was something that we got a lot of questions about as to why we didn't have one. We actually did have one. It was part of our rules of conduct. It talked about the fact that we had a duty to report anything that we saw that was inappropriate to our supervisors. But we wanted to go a step beyond that, and we created a policy that is a standalone policy. It's a lot more detailed than what we had in our rules of conduct. And not only that, it clearly lays out the responsibilities of both the officers and the supervisors in any instance where they see inappropriate behavior. And it lays out the exact reporting requirements, how that chain goes, and what each person along that chain is responsible for. Also very important in that it talks about our commitment to ensuring that there's no retaliation for any officer that intervenes or reports anything along these lines. From there, we went to another policy that we felt needed some changes to it, and that was our use of force policy. It's been a national narrative. We went in and we banned the use of chokeholds. It's not anything that's different for us. We haven't used those in years and years, but we felt like we actually needed to put it into policy. That way it was forward facing and the community could see it and know how we operate and what we do. This is probably one of the things that I get the most questions about, because our policy is that it's a ban on chokeholds except for when deadly force is justified. And after I started getting some questions on it, I started to realize maybe I wasn't explaining it well enough, or maybe there just wasn't a good understanding of what situations that would allow something like that. So I wanted to say that first and foremost, deadly force by the use of law enforcement, it's only used when the officer reasonably believes that the person they're dealing with poses a significant threat of serious bodily injury or death to themselves or others. So that is a very narrow window. And the main word in there, the one that is most important, is reasonable. It doesn't mean that an officer can do whatever they want and call it justified. It means that the average officer looking at the same situation through those set of circumstances would reasonably draw the same conclusion. And that, like I said, that was one of the questions that I got most was, does this just mean that the officer can say, hey, deadly force is justified and use this? And it's not. I also want you to keep in mind that any use of force with our officers undergoes a lot of scrutiny. Initially, they have to fill out a defensive action report that goes to their supervisor. It makes it from their supervisor up to the division commander, up to our Office of Professional Responsibility. And ultimately, it's reviewed several times to determine whether or not, as I said, that force was justified. So I hope that clears that up a little bit and gives a little bit more light as to what that policy change actually means in real world circumstances. Another thing that we did is we developed a duty to intervene policy and a post-custody care class. So this class, first off, it goes back and talks about the duty to intervene, the policy that we just put into place, but it also goes into post-custody care, which is designed to train officers on what their responsibilities are after somebody has been taken into custody. I'm happy to say that we've put the majority of our department through this class already. And not only have we put our officers through it, Criminal Justice Institute, which is out of Little Rock, they're responsible for probably most of the training that law enforcement receives here in Arkansas after the academy. They reached out to us, and our training department actually went there and put on a class that consisted of law enforcement agencies across the state. It was met with high praise. They want us to come back and teach it again. Not only that, we had several departments reach out to our training division and ask for the PowerPoint and the information so they can in turn put it on for their agencies. In addition to that, we sent an officer to defensive tactics training. That's something that we haven't had here in a while, having our own defensive tactics instructor. We felt that if we sent somebody to defensive tactics training, had our own instructor, that we would be able to make our training more relative to what we see here, and we'd be able to put it on a more consistent basis. So we've done that. A lot of questions that we get are in regard to de-escalation and the training that we receive there. I'm very happy to say that our department sent someone to de-escalation training, train the trainer course back in 2015. So this is something that our department has been doing for a long time. We recognize the importance of it way back then and sent an officer there. All of our officers are trained in de-escalation. And much like the duty to intervene in the post-custody care class that I just talked about, we are responsible for training several other agencies in our area and across the state in these same things. And both of those really go to something that I'm passionate about. I've always been passionate about training, but one of the goals that I have for the department is I would like for our department to become a hub for training for other agencies across Central Arkansas. It's very important to me that we provide the best training for our officers and our community, I also feel like it's important for us to give back. And I think the opportunity to do that through our training division, bringing other departments in and improving law enforcement throughout the state, that's something I really want to see us moving toward in the future. As most of you know, well, as all of you know, we're an accredited agency. We have been accredited nationally since 2005. We've been accredited through the state since 2016. A big undertaking that we have had this year in the last couple of months, we were reaccredited by our national agency, CALEA. They came in October, and I think they probably spoke to the majority of you, if not all of you, about the department and the things that were going on. And I'm happy to say that at the end of that, we are receiving reaccreditation once again, and we are maintaining our gold standard, which is become our standard for that. For anybody that's not real sure on what CALEA is, it's an independent body of assessors. They set forth standards that are based on the best practices in law enforcement across not only the United States, but internationally as well. We have to comply with about 450 different standards that deal with everything from, as we said, use of force to pursuit driving to evidence, all sorts of things that we have to show proofs for. And we have to do that on an annual basis. They look at us each year. They will send in for a certain number of proofs. We will send them to them. And then every 4 years, they actually come into the department and review us as a whole. This year, of course, with COVID, they weren't able to come into the department. We were able to do it all virtually, but it worked out well. And I'm happy to say that we'll be going to receive our reward, our award this spring. So.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you. That's one of those things that I can absolutely take no credit for. Chief Spradlin has been having that or kept that going over the last several years. I believe it started with either Chief Aragon or Chief Gary, somewhere in that area.
Chief Aragon.
And we've been doing it for 15 years. And that was the foresight of somebody way back then that knew where we needed to be headed as a department and a community. So I'm happy to keep it going, though. One of the things that I've talked to several of you about, and I talked about training being a passion of mine. This is equally important to me. We've talked about mental health in our community, and that's something that is a topic across the nation right now. And we've really reached a point as a department that I think we have to be more proactive. We have to take steps as a leader in the community to address the situation that we've seen across our nation. We are in a unique position. We have a sergeant here. I don't know, I'm sure some of you are familiar with him, Sergeant Andrew Johnson. He's been with the police department for about 10 years now. And he comes to us with a background in mental health. He has a bachelor's degree in social work. He has a master's degree in counseling. He's worked as a therapist, as a crisis counselor. He was CEO of a juvenile facility at one point. So that's something that we have that honestly, I don't know that you will find any other place here in Arkansas that has access to that. And as I'm talking about this program that we're trying to put in place, I'm going to say we several times, referring to the Conway Police Department, but quite honestly, this is the work of Sergeant Johnson. It is his hard work, his expertise, and his skills that are allowing us to move forward with this. So this is 100% on him as far as that goes, and he is doing a spectacular job on it. But what we realized that we had to do something to address this within our community, and we knew up front that we were going to have to make changes as we moved. Initially, our thoughts were that because of his experience and his training, that we were going to make him available to answer mental health calls within our community. And our thoughts were he was going to be in plain clothes. He was going to be able to build a better rapport on non-threatening situations, and he would be able to have other officers there that he would be able to train as he was doing these things. So it was kind of a dual purpose. We quickly realized that that was not going to be sustainable for us. As he started looking into it and we started looking at the numbers, something I didn't realize, and you guys may not realize either, we answer about 4 calls every single day that would fall into the category of needing to fall under this program. And that's just not something that one individual can do, or at least not maintain for any length of time. So we had to back up and think about this again. And what we've determined is we're going to use Sergeant Johnson as the program coordinator, but he is going to identify and train individuals on each one of our patrol shifts, as well as supervisors that will be able to uniquely handle calls of this type. Not only is he doing that, he's developed basically a 56-hour course that we will start putting our officers through and our supervisors critical incident training and resource training. He has also reached out to community partners that can help us with this. And when I'm saying community partners, I'm meaning places like Counseling Associates, Conway Regional, Baptist, Birch Tree Communities. There's a list of about 15 organizations here in the city that have already stepped up and volunteered to help us move toward this goal that we have. He's had group meetings with each or with all of these, and now he's into the point that he is meeting one-on-one. And those meetings are to determine exactly what resources are available through each of these organizations and the best way to utilize them. So as I said before, we're in the very beginning stages of this, but I'm very optimistic that this is going to be a very good thing, and we're going to be one of the leading agencies within the state that's putting this out. So that's another one of the things that I'm very passionate about, and we'll see how this goes in the next few months and what more changes we're going to have to make. So that's kind of what we have been doing. And amongst all this, we hired 8 new officers in October. 7 of those had never been officers before. So within all this other things that we did, we hired them and we decided to put on our own police academy. We've done it before. We find that when we do that, we end up with a better trained officer for us. And it's because they're not going away and learning the general law enforcement. They are learning specifically how we do it, our policies, procedures, our software, things of that nature. And when they come out, they're much better trained for our individual agency. So I'm happy to say that they will be graduating this Friday. So we will have 7 new officers that are getting sworn in on Friday. At that point, that they will go to their field training, and they will spend about 3.5 more months in the field training program before that they are released on their own. In addition to that, we are testing next week. We have several openings for police officers, and we're putting tests on next week, 2 days next week. So we're really hoping to get some good candidates. So if you know anybody that would make a good police officer, send them our way. There's still a few more days to register for it. Right now, we've got about 100 people that have registered for the test, and if history stays true, we'll see about half of those show up for the test. So about 50 will show up for the test, and of course, then it's up to them to pass it, and then they have to go through the physical agility test and all that. So that number will continually whittle down throughout the background checks and the psychological and the interviews, and hopefully we'll be able to fill our positions out of that.
Chief Tapley?
Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious, after adding the 7 this Friday, how many vacancies do we have now?
We have 10 vacancies right now.
Okay.
Thank
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we are planning on putting on our police academy ourselves again. When we are looking at more than just 2 or 3 officers, it's really a better thing for us, as I said earlier. So our training division will be undertaking that task again, putting on a 12 to 13 week academy, and we'll be running that throughout the spring and summer. So that's really what's going on with the police department right now, the things that we've done and kind of where we're looking at to the future.
Say, Chief,
Yes,
if
sir.
you've already taken the test, can you take it again?
Yes, sir. So the way we've set that up, it used to be that our test was good for a year, and we would have to stay within that list for a year. A couple of years ago, we were able to go to civil service and get that changed. And the way it works now is you can test multiple times, and your highest score is what places you on the list.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, I appreciate the job that you're doing and the program that you and Sergeant Johnson have going. That should put Conway PD at the forefront, and that's a tremendous effort there. And I know being a police officer is a tough job right now, and you kind of came in at a tough time, but the work you're doing and your officers are doing is very much appreciated. Counsel, do you have any questions for the chief?
No, I would just like to add that, Chief, that's a great report. The things you talked about tonight are things that are needed, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir.
And Chief, I appreciate you bringing all of the training in-house. I really like that idea. I don't think anybody's going to train our people any better than our people are.
Yeah.
And I really like that. Thank you.
I agree with you. I'm looking to be able to supplement our training department as we move forward, because the more training we put on, obviously, the more manpower it's going to take to do that. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move some additional personnel into there coming up.
And counsel, the chief and I are very appreciative of you guys voting on the increase in funding and training that was approved in 2021. I know Chief's going to put that to good use.
Yes.
Okay, we've got, let's see, I've got 6:19. If y'all want to take about 11-minute break, we'll all come back in here at 6:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Chief. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the first Conway City Council meeting of 2021. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a good New Year. Hopefully 2021 is going to be a better year. We always begin each meeting, proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to, please feel free to join. If you would bow. Lord God, we thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Lord, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. And Lord, we pray for our meeting tonight, that the decisions to be made would be those that you would have us to do, that bring honor and glory to your name. Pray for Conway, that you would keep us safe. And we just thank you for your goodness. In Christ's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett, would you call the roll, please?
Sir, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hawkins,
Here.
Mr. Grimes,
Here.
Miss Mel,
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Here.
Miss Smith,
Here.
Mr. Jones, and Miss Isby.
Here.
Okay, you should have received copies of the city council meeting minutes for December 8th, 2020. Any corrections, changes, or comments?
Make a motion for approval as submitted. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. First up, we have our Community Development Committee. Mr. Hawkins, are you ready to go for 2021?
Yes, sir, I am. It's, if I can get my wife out of the way there.
That's a brave statement, Mr. Hawkins.
Well, you know, if I've got a button right there and I can move her over, I think it's okay. She's sitting over here threatening to throw something at me right now. Yes, sir. It's another year. It is. First of all, we have a resolution to approve the city council organizational rules and procedures for the year of 2021. And we have a resolution to be read for this. It's resolution R2101.
This is our annual resolution for our city council meetings. We've added language this year regarding virtual meetings due to COVID, and no matter what comes forward from this point on, we will able to, we'll have that in our procedures, something we didn't really think we would ever come to, but that is in the new procedures. Also, I would like to toss it out to the council. It's entirely up to the council. As you know, we've been meeting for the last 4 years at 6:30. If y'all would like to do a time change, meet at an earlier time, I am open to hearing that. We can leave it as is. I know Mr. Jones has a new job that I think he can. I think I'm letting me speak for Mr. Jones, but he said he could move up to 6 o'clock without any problems. Is that correct, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, that's fine with me. And another reason I thought 6 might be better, if we have a committee meeting, if we started at 5:30, then that'd be 4:30. And I don't know if the people that's working be off then. So I figured if 6 is okay with y'all, it'd be great with me.
Okay.
Works for me, Mr. Jones.
All right. Council, back to you.
You need a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we move our meetings to 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to approve the organizational rules and procedures for 2021, scooting our time up to 6 p.m. starting time for city council meetings, and also the inclusion of the meeting remotely. Any further discussion? Ms. Smith, did you have a question?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further? If not, Mr. Garrett, please call the vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0. I'm pretty sure I know which resolution that was.
It is. It's 01.
01. All right. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to establish the Conway Municipal Property Owners Multipurpose Improvement District Number 14, Wills Drive Water Extension Project. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 02101.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings. Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the three readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 7-0, and they'll turn in all the necessary documents to Mr. Garrett, if I understand that right.
I make a
Anyway,
motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. There's also an emergency clause in there. Is that good with your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To establish the Conway Municipal Improvement District number 14 with emergency clause. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Miss Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Miss Smith,
Yes.
Miss Mel,
Aye.
and the emergency clause, Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Miss Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Miss Smith,
Yes.
Miss Mel.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Those both pass 7-0. Mr. Hawkins?
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve transportation services provided by Independent Living Services, the Boys and Girls Club of Faulkner County, and Faulkner County Council on the Aging. And Ms. Bryce, is this going to be up your alley or not? Who's going to handle this?
These are their annual transportation contracts, as was mentioned, Independent Living Services, Boys and Girls Club, Faulkner County Senior Citizens. They do our community a tremendous service. They actually provide a lot of transportation for a lot of folks here in Conway, and the budget amount, it remained the same this year. There was no increase. Mr. Vincent is online if y'all have any questions for him about it or for myself.
And this is Bryce is here, but I think she's having some sound issues, so I might be able to answer any questions that you might have.
I'll make a motion that we approve these contracts. It's one for Independent Living Service of $30,000, Boys and Girls Club of $80,000, and the Faulkner County Council on Aging $92,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract for transportation services. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0, and those agencies really do help us out a lot. Mr. Hawkins?
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution accepting annual bids for materials and services utilized by the City of Conway departments. And we have a resolution to be read for this. It's Resolution R2102.
Okay, and the contracts with the lowest bid were for gravel, it was Rogers Group. For concrete pipe, it was Skurlock Industries. Concrete work, JCI, Ready Mix, and Mallard are the groups. Does that sound right, Finley, Jamie? Okay.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
It is.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to accept annual bids for materials and services for city departments. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
That's 7-0. Mr. Hawkins?
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to enter into an agreement with McDo Preservation LLC for the preparation of the Conway, Arkansas African American Historic Context Study. And we have an before you right now, and I'm looking to see who might want to talk about this one.
Mr. James Walton.
Probably James.
Mr. Walden. Go, Mr.
Yeah.
Walden.
So you might have noted a few months ago that we brought an acceptance of the RFP that we put out to y'all. We actually ended up going through the negotiation process with the firm that we had originally selected, which was HRA, which was out of the West Coast. There was a severe disconnect between the amount that we were granted for the award and how much the services were going to cost. After we reconciled all of those issues, one of the primary reasons that we had selected their firm was the proximity of Dr. Ashley Booknight, who was in Nashville, Tennessee. She ended up leaving the firm. And so at that point, we considered it a failed negotiation. We fell back to our second one on the list, or in the selection, which was McDo Preservation. Really didn't think it was a big step back in any way. And they had particular advantages of being so much closer in Texas than the other firm out of the West Coast. So we wanted to spend more of that money that we were being granted from the state on actual work rather than travel. So we got our original grant agreement from the state. The state was granting us $7,500. Through negotiation on this agreement and the previous agreement, we have gotten the state to up that to just over $28,000. So there's no match on this. And we'll be able to get this agreement, the work that we have with this, go a lot further, be able to do a lot of the oral histories that we were wanting to do in partnership with UCA. Provides kind of tee us up for some wayfinding opportunities, interpretive opportunities in the Markham Street and Pine Street area for history. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. And so bringing this contract to you, and that's where we are.
Good.
Well,
Hey, James.
I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Theo. Go ahead, Theo.
I'm just glad we got the money for it. When I first looked at that and saw how much they were going to charge and where they're coming from, I was kind of hesitant, but I'm glad we got the funds for it, and that should be a good project since it's not coming out of our pocket. Not that I'm cheap or anything, but these days and time, stop, Mr. Ledbetter. These days and time, we need to save whatever we can. So I appreciate the work too, man.
The state is very excited about this project. Obviously, in our day and age, and particularly in the realm of historic preservation has typically meant preservation of sort of Caucasian history or white history. And so this is a great chance, I think, for us to pivot and tell a lot of the stories that have not been told, and make sure that when we're talking about preserving the history of our community, we're preserving the history of our entire community, not just one segment of the community.
Yeah, at the end of December, I had a chance to introduce Mrs. Walton to someone who's going to help fund some of the oral history interns from UCA who are going to help work on this project. She was really excited, and she said, there's a number of people we need to talk to right now because they're getting older and we're going to lose that information. And so I was really pleased that was able to work out. I do have one little technical thing. In the scope of work, in item number 2, it talks about Pine Bluff, Markham Street. I think you meant Pine Street.
That was a consultant error. Yes.
Okay. I was pretty sure we weren't buying anything for Pine Bluff, as much as we like them.
No, we are not.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Hey, in the study, if y'all hear anything bad about me, don't believe any of it, okay?
Oh, I can't wait for that part. Let's see, you have a sister and all
Yes.
kinds of.
She's a snitch too.
She just tells the truth.
Okay, council, what do you think?
I make a motion, we enter into this agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this agreement for an African American historic context study. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Walden. It's very exciting.
Well done, James.
Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution approving the qualification professional services for the Middle Road Bridge project over Gold Creek for the Transportation Department. And Mr. Vincent, I bet this is right up your alley.
It is. I was hoping you might introduce me as Mr. Lennon, but I'll take Mr. Vincent.
Well, you're looking more every day. Like Vladimir.
Well, on my
Yes,
screen,
sir.
he's right next to Chief Ledbetter. And Chief Ledbetter is the man when it comes to mustaches.
Yeah, I mean, I need to create some
Oh.
distance there between myself and Mr. Ledbetter. I can't compete with that.
You got potential.
Potential.
I appreciate it. So at the last Metro Plan meeting, Tab Townsell mentioned that Metro Plan anticipates there being a significant amount of funding from the federal government for transportation in the coming months, and encouraged everyone to try to have some projects shovel ready this summer. And the words were barely out of his mouth before I thought about the Middle Road Bridge. This bridge is structurally deficient as of the last inspection, which was about a year ago. And I think we could have this one ready if we enter an agreement today. I think we could have this one ready this summer. And this agreement is for Garver to provide mostly environmental and structural services to prepare the design for hopefully what might be a good grant project.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Finley. They've already put a weight limit on this bridge, have they not?
I believe so. Yes.
And the next step from a weight limit is to just shut it down.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario. We certainly don't want to get there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Finley Council?
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution, and I have it as 03.
Correct.
Second.
Isby.
We have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for Garver Professional Services for the Middle Road Bridge over Gold Creek. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance appropriating funds from the Arkansas Department of Transportation for the Markham Street Jumpstart Project for the Transportation Department. And the ordinance to be read for that is ordinance 02102.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Mr. Benson, would you kind of bring the council up to speed on this one?
Of course, this is not the first one of these you've seen, and it won't be the last. This is a reimbursement project. We're just putting the money back in the right account, essentially.
I'll make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance appropriating funds for the Markham Street Jumpstart Project. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration of the nomination for the tree board for the city of Conway. There was a vacancy as of January 1 of this year. It was advertised in the month of October, and 2 nominations were received. The board voted to submit the name of Trey Geyer. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, Geier, to serve on the tree board for a 3-year term ending December 31, 2023. And I move that we accept this nomination of Mr. Trey Geyer.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the nomination of Trey Geyer to the tree board, Conway Tree Board. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve the nomination for Public Art Board for the city of Conway. Art Board had a vacancy as of September 2020, advertised during the month of September and October. 1 nomination was received, and the Public Art Board voted to submit Ricky Gully to serve the board for a 4-year term ending January 31st, 2024. And I move that we accept Mr. Gully. Ricky G.
Ricky likes to be involved, and I think he will make an excellent member here. He loves being involved in Conway. Along with those nominations, the approval is for Joanne Nabhos and also Rod Miller, along with Ricky Gully.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's okay, Mr. Hawkins. Any further
Thank you very
discussion?
much.
Mr. Garrett,
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins,
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to approve and appropriate funding for the underground art walk project for the Public Art Board. And for this one, we have an ordinance to be read. It is ordinance 02103.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Passes 7-0. Mr. Walden, would you explain this to the public, please?
Yes, so the Public Art Board was approached by Jessica Jones, who you'll know has done several murals in downtown. Folks had noticed that we'd had a lot of graffiti problems in the underpass for Kinley Trail under Prince Street. If you go under there, you'll notice the wonderful black paint that is everywhere, that we've had a lot of problems with tagging. So she has talked to some street artists within the area and approached us with the idea of actually just using that, painting that with murals and street art as a way to help mitigate and possibly prevent further tagging. So she said, $5,000, we'll split it among 10 artists that she'll administer the project. And we kind of thought, the Public Art Board thought, that might actually work. We might actually prevent something. It's a fairly small investment for something that could have some pretty large tangible benefits. We're looking at this from the perspective of, if this works well as a pilot project, that this might be something that the Public Art Board looks to replicate in other areas and possibly work with RDOT as well for areas where we have other tagging issues. I guess I'll answer any questions that you all might have as it relates to this.
Okay. Thank you,
Good,
James. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Hawkins.
No, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Council, back to you.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance, which appropriates funding for the underground art walk project for the Public Art Board. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to approve the match grant funding for the Whimsical Toad project for the Public Art Board. And we have an ordinance to be read. It's ordinance 02104.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. This is at the corner of Oak and Front, and council, in your packet there, you'll notice a picture of it. It kind of looks like someone familiar. Not gonna call any names. At least someone said it kind of looked like me in my old age. So, but anyway, there's Mr. Walden's here to explain it. And while we're talking about public art, it seems that some folks are under the misunderstanding that art funding comes from the general fund. Well, you all, council, that it does not. It comes from actually voluntary taxes that people pay when they pay their property taxes, and occasionally from the A&P, but it does not come from the general fund. So anyway, I just felt like I needed to say that. Anyway, Mr. Walden, would you like to add to this?
Yes. So the reason this is coming before you now, the Downtown Partnership had previously applied for a grant, and this was sometime early last year. We were under the impression that at that time they had brought that forward to y'all for a request and approval, and then found out that that was not the case, and so we're bringing it to you now. Part of that grant application required a $10,000 match on the part of the city. So it was a $10,000 match, a grant of $10,000. The project actually works out very well. This melds into an additional grant project that the Historic District Commission is working on for basically a public art history tour that we're dubbing quote unquote tiny toads, that will be placing little tiny toads at different historic locations in downtown. With each of those locations, there'll be a story about, in that building and what that toad relates to, and all of those things. So this, in some ways will be Daddy Toad, kind of represents what we would call the 100% corner in town, with the Halter building and the Frauenthal Schwartz building there, that those are kind of keys to the big history of Conway. So this art's already been manufactured, and it's ready to be installed, and we'll have an unveiling very soon if this is approved.
Mr. Walden, this will be permanently attached to the sidewalk, will it not?
It will be, yes. And
Okay.
and you can sit on it and sit next to it and take a picture, with in downtown. So it'll be a nice interactive piece.
Well, the reason I wanted to make sure it's permanently attached is I knew Mark Ledbetter in high school, and there's no telling where this thing would have ended up back then.
No comment.
Thank you, James, for explaining that to everyone.
Hey, James,
Yes, sir.
a question for you. Are we sure this is a toad?
It's a whimsical toad.
It
Oh,
looks like a toad. I mean, it
Kind of
might
looks
be a
like a
frog.
bullfrog. Looks like a bullfrog, kind
Use
of.
the F word.
It looks like a frog to me, James. I'm just telling you. I've said all I'm going to say.
I'm a planner, not a zoologist, so I'll say it.
Well, I've yet to ever see a bullfrog or a toad frog cross their legs.
Welcome to Conway.
We digress. Council, it's back to you.
I make a motion for the ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to approve the match funding for the Whimsical Toad Project for the Public Art Board. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Ms. Isby.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Got some property we're trying to annex into town, or not us, but somebody wants to annex some property that is at 1850 East German Lane, and we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 02105.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. We have Mr. Walden and Mr. Chris Seiler on board with us, council. If you have any questions for him, Mr. Walden, would you explain this for the public that's watching, please, sir?
Yes. If you haven't noticed, we've been growing on the east side of our town lately. We've had a lot of houses and development go up there. In response to that, these property owners have realized that maybe it's a good time for them to annex into the city. They're deciding to annex that in as R1, which would allow for single family development on the property. This was unanimously recommended by staff. It was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission as well. We all find that it will be a good addition to the city.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance to annex 10 acres located at 1850 East German Lane into the city of Conway. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Siler. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property located at 1400 to 1440 East Siebenmorgan Road and 1510 and 1520 Trison Lane. They're currently zoned O2, and the requested zoning is R1. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance number O2106.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Mr. Walden, would you explain that to the public? And I think Mr. Ben Temple is online with us. I do not know if Ms. Worth is, but
Yes.
Mr. Walden.
Yes, so this property has gone under, been reviewed for a replat. The intent was to allow for use of 7 new single-family homes. The property is currently zoned an office zone. That office zone does not allow single-family development. So this is actually would be a down zone at this location. It's sort of been a theme this year of people taking certain areas that have been zoned higher zoning and taking it down to either commercial from industrial or, office to residential. But that's all that this rezoning is doing in this location, allowing 7 new single-family homes.
I'll make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone property located at 1400 and 1440 East Siebenmorgan Road and 1510 and 1520 Trison Lane from O2 to R1. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mel.
Aye.
That passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Temple.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins.
Pretty good indication that things are going on in town right now with all of the rezonings that requested. And Mr. Walden, I know that you can probably support that that statement. I would say that there is some building going on right now.
Oh, absolutely. We just completed our year-end report. The number of single-family permits this year exceeded last year. It's up considerably. It had 331 new single-family permits, which is, I think, the highest level since 2006. We created 491 new single-family lots. So, based on the last 3 years, I think you're probably looking at development being back at where it was in that 2004, 2005, 2006 range, that we're growing again considerably right now.
Good. That's what I see, having sat in the seat for so long, is that whenever people are rezoning, things are going on in town. And I think that's a good sign. Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property at 605 to 675 Dave Ward Drive. It presently is zoned I3. The requested zoning is C3. And this was reviewed by the Conway Planning Commission at their meeting on, I'm looking for the date. Mr. Walden, do you have that?
This was the December meeting.
The December meeting. Planning Commission voted at that time to send this to us 7-0 with a recommendation of approval. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance O2107.
Make a motion that we waive 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Mr. Walden, would you explain this to the folks in public that are watching? And also, I think Mr. Jason Covington has joined us for this piece of property here. If y'all have any questions for Mr. Covington as well. Mr. Walden.
Yes, sir. So this property is currently zoned industrial. It is in that location near the old Ward bus plant where we had a lot of industrial property in the past. With the widening of Dave Ward and all of the development that's gone on through there, the Covingtons have had commercial development. They've kind of reached the limits of what they can do through conditional uses in this location. And so they were wanting to just bundle all of this property up and then take it to C3 so that it would allow them to do further commercial development in that location. So this is I think a really good thing in terms of, for the long-term appearance and the types of uses that we're wanting to see in that location, that this will continue to be good development here.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone property located at 605 to 675 Dave Ward Drive from I3 to C3. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Isby.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Covington. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property located at 1972 Dave Ward Drive. It currently is zoned R1. The requested zoning is to go to O3. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission December 21st of 2020. And at that time, the commission voted unanimously to send this to City Council with a recommendation of approval. We have an ordinance for this item. It's ordinance 02108.
I make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. We have Mr. David Davies online with us tonight. And Mr. Walden, would you please explain this what we're doing here to the folks at home, please, sir?
Yes. So the property is currently zoned for single-family residential. It's directly to the east of the come and go that is there at Dave Ward and Donaghy. We were approached by Mr. Davies about the possibility of opening up a law office in this existing single-family home. It's actually really well suited for it. The property has 5 parking spaces and is a couple blocks down from a similar single-family home that was converted to an accountant's office. So in discussing this with them, we recommended that they go with O3, which is our least intensive type of office zoning. The property is adjacent to a backyard of the other property that's on a side yard, and then the parking area, it on the north side, it joins the parking area from another single family. So really feel in a lot of ways it provides probably a good adjustment and buffer from Dave Ward going down to the single family. What you have happen in a lot of areas like this, you get a lot of demand for commercial such as come and go that's at the corner, and you start to have zoning creep where the entire area starts to turn commercial. Allowing office use in this location, planning staff feels that it is very good because it helps utilize the existing structure so it doesn't change the overall character of the area, but it does allow that kind of a transition without being too detrimental to the neighborhood.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone the property located at 1972 Dave Ward Drive from R1 to O3. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Isby.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Davies, for joining us. Mr.
Thank
Hawkins.
you.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property at 1630 and 1640 South Donaghy Avenue from R1 to a PUD. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission in December of 2020. And at that time, the commission voted 7-0 to forward this to City Council with a recommendation of approval. We have an ordinance to be read for this item. It is ordinance 02009.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. We have Mr. Philip Lewis with us tonight and Mr. Gary Kuykendall. Mr. Walden, would you explain this for the public, please, sir?
Yeah, so this property is located near the corner of Favre and Donaghy, South Donaghy, out by the school in that location. This is part of a series of developments that you've seen going on out there, in part because of the PUD that was developed at the very corner by the Mr. Kevin Watson that helped bring sewer into this area. So we've seen a lot of platting activity and development activity in the area. What this is doing is it's rezoning it from single family at an R1 density to allow single family PUD with 4,000 square foot lots to allow 19 sort of zero lot line house homes in this location. In trade for that density, which a PUD is essentially for the folks at home, is a district by design that you basically the city negotiates with a developer on give and take on certain aspects. The gain for the developer is that they're getting smaller lots. The gain for the city and the neighborhood in this particular instance is some limitations on design. For instance, in this location, all the structures will be brick, stone, wood, or hardy board in that location. We won't have accessory structures, so that we get some enhanced design standards within the neighborhood. So,
Okay, how much smaller lots are we talking?
so you could go from 6,000 down to 4,000. What that does not affect necessarily is the size of the house. So there's been considerable market demand in recent years. I guess because people spend more time inside in their houses and like to mow less, there's a lot of market demand for smaller lots and increasing house sizes. It's been kind of working in parallel. They want to put more money into their house rather than the property.
And so how many houses are they planning on putting on 2 acres?
It's going to be 19
On 2 acres?
on 3 acres.
Well, it looks like on the drawing, it's 12 structures because they're duplexes. Is that right? Or am I looking at the wrong?
No, these are zero lot line single family.
Okay. Because the drawing says duplexes. 42 by 42 duplex.
I think that may be a different application.
Okay. It's got Salem and Meadow Lake, so that's why I might be confused.
That's the next one. We had so
Is
many.
that the next one? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
we're on Donaghy on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there are two streets that this street will tie in. It's being partnered up with the subdivision that's being developed just to the east.
Oh, I see.
There are 19 lots with a detention area that's on the west side. The lots range from about a tenth of an acre to 0.13 acres. So it varies in terms of those sizes. But I
James,
think
what neighborhood?
I'm sorry.
What neighborhood around would be comparable to that? Just to give Theo an idea, maybe of what they're looking at that has zero lot lines.
I think in terms of the overall density, not necessarily the character, would be sort of like the villages at Hendricks, in that it's a smaller lot. What's different about these is that on most of the lots, the lot depth is not real big, but the lot width is wide. So it still appears to look like sort of what you would see in a regular standard R1 neighborhood.
I make a motion. Okay, go on, Theo. I'm sorry.
I got a question. How many lots are normally in an acre?
So within an acre, I can calculate that up real quick. Let's see.
Doesn't it depend on the size houses, structures and all that would warrant that too?
It does. You can overall get about close to 6 units an acre, probably about 5 units an acre. This is at 6.3 units an acre. So one of the things that with this increase in density, it has a detention area. Within a normal R1 subdivision, you don't normally have a detention area, just because of that's the way that the lot layout works. So from a practical standpoint, you're looking at a difference of about probably 2 to 3 units difference between a standard R1 neighborhood and what you would have developed here.
Okay, I'm gonna let y'all vote on it, but you tell them you can get 5 on an acre, and this is 2.75 acres, right?
2.97 acres.
Almost
3
3
acres. Yeah.
Right at 3.
Well, did they, any of the neighbors complain or anything? Do they know about it?
We had a public information meeting prior to the planning commission meeting. We had one family in attendance when they heard that it was single family development, that would it be brick or wood or stone. They said that sounds great. So there was no opposition at the planning commission. We didn't have any opposition either.
Hey, James, would it be, you mentioned the Hendricks Village, would it be something maybe close to what Chris Thornton did there at the corner of Carl Stewart and Hubbard across from the school?
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is similar. Yeah.
Okay. As
I
far
make a
as size
motion.
of the lots and whatnot, yeah.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone the property located at 1630 and 1640 South Donaghy Avenue from R1 to a PUD. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Kirkendall. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property at the northeast corner of Meadow Lake and Salem Road. It presently is zoned A1. The requested zoning is a PUD. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their December 2020 meeting. And at that time, they voted 6-1 to forward this to City Council with a recommendation of approval. We have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance O-2110.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Mr. Walden, I don't think Mr. Hamilton's on here. Mr. Walden, would you please explain this, sir?
Yes. So this is going to be at the corner of Meadow Lake and Salem Road, where Tom Watson is building across from where Tom Watson's building some storage units currently. We were approached about this, and so we staff worked with the applicant here in this location. They were wanting to do sort of a different type of product. This is going to be 24 dwelling units or 12 duplexes on the property. The configuration of the property makes it really, really difficult to develop. And additionally, there's going to be a roundabout in this location in the future. So it will have one access off of Meadow Lake Road there off to the east. One of the concessions that staff was particularly proud of that we were able to get is that the fronts of the duplexes will face out to Salem and Meadow Lake, and they'll all be incorporated with a pedestrian entrance and a porch facing on those roads. So this will look like, part of a neighborhood fabric of the neighborhood. It'll have a nice appearance. It won't be walled off and separated with that. But answer any other questions that you all might have.
Was anybody worried about just having one way in and out and not having another way to get out over on Salem?
An additional access? No, it is not at the level. So, for instance, if this were a single family neighborhood, at this level, one entrance and one exit would still be okay. Once you get to about 30 units, then that is when the fire department either requires 2 entries and exits or requires that the structures be sprinkled. So at this amount of number of structures, it's fine. Meets the fire code, I guess.
I just wonder what it's going to look like when they're all trying to get out and go to work in the morning. I hope they all turn right.
Yeah. Well, we'll have
the guys behind you are trapped.
Exactly.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone property located at the northeast corner of Meadow Lake Road in Salem from A1 to a PUD. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Miss Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Miss Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Miss Smith.
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to modify an existing conditional use permit. It's at 2425 Tyler Street, allowing a child care facility in R2 zone at that address at 2425. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their December 2020 meeting. And at that time, they voted 7-0 if the request be sent to City Council with a recommendation of approval with some updated conditions. Current conditions are hours of operation limited to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday. Sufficient parking must be supplied for employees and parents. All new signage shall be permitted by the planning department prior to installation. And any expansions or additions to the structure, site, or change in use shall require a new or amended conditional use permit. And with those conditions and new conditions, I move that we grant this conditional use permit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to modify the existing conditional use permit on this property. We have Ms. Perez online as well, if you would like to speak to her and ask her any questions.
I was just kind of curious as to how many children she will house at that daycare.
44.
44?
Yeah, the license is for 44 children.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Perez.
You're welcome.
Not to give away how old my daughter is, but she went to childcare there 28, 29, 30 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Will there be an issue getting cars out on Donaghy there? I mean, out on Tyler there? That many cars coming and going? Is anybody?
Ms.
I was
Perez.
going to say, I don't recall there being
When?
an issue right there.
Mr. Walden, do you have any thoughts on that?
We certainly, I mean, if there's concern as with that, you could certainly send it back down to the planning commission for consideration of traffic. Honestly, was not aware license would allow 44 children, but however, that would probably be difficult to fit in that site. But I'm not sure how many were operated there previously. In essence, it probably was licensed for the same amount previously. The effect of what this was to change. Essentially, what we're doing with this conditional use is changing the name on the permit and striking that out. So the same condition may have already existed. It may not be an issue, I guess. But
Yeah,
I certainly understand concerns about traffic as well.
Mhm.
traffic about the parents or about what? Because the parents, we have something around and the parent parking and then go drop the children and then get out. And the license, they never change for the, we have 44 is the same, the license before they have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
the
they don't,
same.
they can give you more than the daycare before. That's the same.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Perez.
Just curious.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
No, thank you, Ms. Smith. That's a good question.
Good question. It was.
Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Perez.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hawkins?
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is it's consideration to approve a conditional use permit for temporary parking at Conway Regional Medical Center. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting in December of 2020. And at that time, the vote was 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention that the request be forwarded to City Council with a recommendation of approval with some conditions. Those conditions are located there. And the number 1 condition is that this is temporary, running from now or whenever it is put into place through December 31st of 2022. So it will be a 2-year situation for Conway Regional. And with the conditions listed, I move that we grant this conditional use permit.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit for temporary parking at Conway Regional Hospital. I'm sorry, Conway Regional Medical Center. And you can tell I'm from Conway. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Aaron Scott was on board with us there too. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Hawkins?
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property located at 225 East Robin Street. It presently is zoned I3. The requested zoning is a commercial zoning C2. And this was reviewed by the Planning Commission in December of 2020. And the commission voted unanimously to send this to City Council with a recommendation of approval. We have an ordinance to read for this item. It is ordinance 02111.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. We have Mr. Walden to speak this, and also Ms. Spring Hunter. I think all of you are aware of this property. It's where the McDonald's office was located on East Robbins across from the street department. Ms. Hunter, would you like to speak to this?
Well, I would. I understood that Mr. Walden was going to kind of open for us and kind of cover the details of it, but I'm
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll start with Mr. Walden. I'm sorry, Spring. James, would you start us off and tell the public what we got going here?
I apologize if you heard my daughter screaming, the dogs barking downstairs.
You're probably about to hear some of that on this end too. So
they're getting restless.
Which one bit the other one?
Well, the 2 dogs like to fight independent of the kids bothering them. So, but this item and then the next item are linked. So the rezoning is being sought to allow the conditional use application that is on the next application. So in this is similarly an I3 property that's being downzoned to C2. The C2 zoning would allow the conditional use for a shelter for the homeless. Apart from the conditional use in terms of looking at the I3 zoning to the C2 zoning, this is, I think, a very favorable downzone on that property, particularly due to the fact that it is adjacent to residential on the east or on the west and south sides. So when you evaluate and think about the potential uses that could locate on this existing I3 property, they could have a very adverse effect on that adjacent property. So that was really the basis for why the potential for those existing adverse effects from the existing zoning was why the staff recommended, and also part of the reasoning why the planning commission recommended this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Walden.
I make a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone property located at 225 East Robbins from 1-3 to C2. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Passes 6-0. Mr. Hawkins.
And finally, Mr. Mayor, consideration to approve a conditional use permit to allow a shelter for homeless at 225 East Robbins that we just rezoned. We have, or this was reviewed in December of 2020 by the Planning Commission, and they have voted 7-0 to move this to City Council with a recommendation of approval with some conditions, and shelter housing for individuals allowed from 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. Housing for families shall not be limited. No registered sex offenders. On-site staff supervision of overnight housing is required. You can see the other conditions listed there. And with those conditions, I move that we grant this conditional use permit.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit to allow shelter for the homeless located at 225 East Robbins. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Spring, did I get that right, Mr.? I jumped ahead of myself. Okay. All right. Spring, I was you get so excited every time you talk about this. I was just going to give you the opportunity to speak earlier. So I wasn't trying to throw you in front of James. I just know how you get about this. But
I think that's why James offered to speak in front of me, so I didn't, start preaching or something over here.
that's okay. Well, I want you to know that we appreciate all that you do with the warming center and for our homeless population in Conway. Y'all do a tremendous job, and it's greatly appreciated.
Well, we are super excited to have a permanent home. Thank you so much, friends. I appreciate that.
And Spring, having the operation plan made it very easy for us to kind of really understand how it's going to work and what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, we are very excited to get the ball rolling on this.
All right. Thank you. Well, Mr. Walden, you and Mr. Hawkins have had a long night tonight.
It's been a marathon.
I appreciate it. Next up, thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Don't cancel that second meeting in December ever again, please.
Ho, ho, ho. Next up, we have public safety, and we'll start with an ordinance appropriating funds and authorizing the purchase of the property located at 1820 Old Marlton Highway. That is the Old Bell property located next to Station 7. Or the station on the north end of town there, like you're going out to Beaver Fork Lake. The council gave me permission to our December meeting and gave Jamie permission to proceed with purchasing that property. And we have Ms. Bryce online. Should you have any questions about that property?
And I will just summarize in there, Mayor, that the property owner, Robert Bell, agreed to sell this piece of property for the appraised value of $145,000. We have added $5,000 to that ordinance to cover closing costs and any costs associated with the purchase.
I make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance to appropriate funds and authorizing the purchase of the property located at 1820 Old Marlton Highway. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Ms. Isby.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Jamie. And the last item on the agenda tonight, we have an ordinance appropriating funds for the employee bonus for the city of Conway. As you know, in 2017, we gave a 3% bonus, COLA, not a bonus, COLA. 2018, a 2%, and in 2019, 1.5%. And each percentage cost us about $200,000. So in the last 2017 through 2019, we put out about $1.3 million in COLA raises, which, as you know, will be in the budget from now on. And so this year, not without really having a good grip on what the COVID is going to do to us economically, and actually we've weathered it pretty well so far, but still we don't know. I felt like that we do reward our employees, because our employees show up to work every day. They do a tremendous job. Our employees are the ones that make Conway the great city it is, and they make all of our jobs easier. And I just can't say enough about all of them, every single one of them. But I appreciate y'all awarding them, all the full-time employees, a bigger Christmas bonus to our full-time and part-time employees at Christmas. And the 3% would be 3% of the full-time employees' salary. And I think we have the amounts there. I do. To the general fund, it'll be about 583. It'll be 583,000. To the street fund, 51,000. To the sanitation fund, it'll be 104,000, and the airport fund, it'll be 7,000. And this is just a bonus, and maybe we do have a committee that will be meeting here. Hopefully, I'm going to send out an email to them this week about looking at all salaries citywide to kind of see where we stand. But I think it is important that we reward our employees for the great job they do, and I know you guys do too. But this is, like I said, 3% of their annual salary, all full-time employees. I would say that in elected employees, which is myself, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Finkenbinder, you can pull ours out. That would be $9,000. I leave that entirely up to the council. It's just put in there for accounting. And I promise you that none of us will be offended if we are taken out of this. So that's it in a nutshell.
Mayor, let me ask one question. Do you know when those checks will go out?
Mr. Winningham, you're online here, sir. Our plan is to have
we'll get those out as soon as we can. We've got W-2s and 1099s to process along with regular payrolls. So we're hoping to get them out before the end of January. We'll do our best to make that.
Okay. I'm sure someone will be curious. So.
Any other questions?
I make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance as it's presented with the emergency clause.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance for employee bonuses with the emergency clause. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
emergency clause, Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Isby.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. And I know that a lot of the employees did reach out to you guys and thanked you for the Christmas bonuses. And I know they'll be very appreciative of this, as we all are. And again, we just have a tremendous amount of employees at Conway that do a tremendous job each and every day. And thank you.
You do. Thank you.
Amen.
Something we're going to try this year. We're not going to try. We're just going to do it. I will be sending a monthly report from each department to the city council. I know you guys are always in the loop, but I feel like if I put it in writing, it'll be a little bit letters. I'm just going to forward everything that I get from the city, from the department heads to you. And if there's any questions or concerns, you'll feel free to let me know. But since we are meeting remotely and it is hard to for everybody to get together, I think this will be a better way to keep you guys in the loop and involved. And then we can do away with that when we get everybody back in here, City Hall, and we can all meet face to face. But that's something you'll see beginning February 1st. It'll be a report from January. Then we'll follow through at the end or beginning of each month.
That's great.
All right. And we'll have some more department heads to give you some reports here in the near future. I was very impressed with Chief Tapley's report. I've been very impressed with what Chief Tapley is doing at Conway PD. And I appreciate him and his officers who are working in a very tough time right now. And
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Miss Mail. Yes, ma'am.
It's okay. You can call me Joe now. I just wondered, I just wanted to give a quick, real short update. I know our sector meetings with the 2035 program are going really well. And I know most of the council members on a different sector are doing something. I mean, mine is on poverty and homelessness. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of what those final results from all the areas are. I think that's going to be really useful for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too. And we are, of course, Felicia should be setting up meetings with each of you if she hadn't already, to look at individually, to look at our strategic plan and our survey and get y'all's thoughts on moving forward for the next 4 years. So,
yeah, I think all that ties together.
Yeah, it does. Yep. It does. It's a good thing. So anyway, that's all I have. We're off to a new start and a new year. Hopefully it's going to be a great one. So
Happy New Year.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.